Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where it's about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale, or maybe just straight up finale, of Chapelwaite. A great finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we're going into the final battle. The sun's still out, granted, it's slowly dissipating. As the spell is being cast. I even love to the point that, Jacob, I guess, felt like, right, this is all thanks to you, Loa, so I need you to come finish the spell. It's only right that you help plunge this world into eternal darkness. And as they're ready to come through, it's like, right, everyone get a torch, we're going to burn everything down, but just when they do, the entire sky's blackened. Honestly, it was, super damn pretty, because I think it's, because of, that's supposed to be, symbolic of, those little lights in the world, that sky, almost looking like fireflies. I'm assuming that's supposed to be, right, this spell is draining the last bit of darkness. At first, I was almost thinking, all light was going to be extinguished, because at first, I guess it's just the winds that, knocked their torches out, because at first I was like, ooh, it's all, but then there was, a fire right beside them that kept going, so I was like, oh, never mind. I thought, all forms of light were being ripped away, but in that moment, everybody started coming out, because at this point there's no one left that's human. All the human acolytes, all the promise, are now vampires too, so you don't just have a few random humans. That would be a lot easier to deal with than some vampires, but they're getting attacked from all fronts. That first poor bastard, because there's one guy that went off on his own who got separated from everyone and got killed by Steven. It's same thing happened at the beginning, someone going off, all those people who came to attack Chapelwaite earlier in the season. One of them was by himself and got killed by, I'm assuming that was Philip and not Steven. I don't remember. Whatever the case may be, it was very, very similar. I mean, speaking of Philip, his head's at the front of the place. Well, we know Steven had his head last, so I guess Steven put it there. But, yeah, everyone's scattered. You had Abel, the doctor, big dude who was kind of a D-bag, who's yeah, everyone worked together for this. It was granted, most of that group got wiped out pretty immediately. A lot of them got cut down, off screen. Abel and the doctor were the only ones of their group that survived, because they ran into the people who went from being the promised humans into now vampires, so. You had Rebecca being dragged away by her dad, but he was trying to give her a shot, because it's right, you're here, my daughter, so here. And I thought he was going to spill the beans, because right, the way her father was acting the way her mother was acting last episode made me feel like there was something suspicious related to her dad. But I guess it's just for the first time Rebecca was kind of fully seeing her father the way, and I guess that kind of broke her mother's heart, being right, I guess now you've kind of seen what it's, I think despite everything, it's because there was probably some part of her that still cared about him, knowing that he became a monster like that, and obviously scared whether or not her daughter was going to come back. But I thought there was something a little more suspicious going on there. Turns out not to be the case. Because for her, it's she's I made excuses for you time and time again. I guess try to, make him be the better man that he was. She's telling him to end this, but it's no, because she's you worked with Jacob and you got things to this far. You're the reason why things have made it this far. I mean, if it wasn't for him, a lot of these recent events wouldn't, he helped, set a lot of this in motion, helping Jacob find the book and everything, and being rewarded by becoming a vampire. I guess that was his reward, but not just one family you abandoned your second family too. But I guess kind of showing you he's not the best person. And when the time came, it's she's is there any form of the man that I used to know still in there? And he's I choose how much or how little I feel. So for him, it's if you're not going to join me, then, you'll maybe come to regret that. So I guess with the context of everything, he's just one of the vampires, I guess, that just kind of got killed off screen of because it seems like everyone in Jerusalem's lot got it. George even sacrificed himself, because he's I don't have much left in me. I'm going to die anyway. Plus, he's I hope when I do, I get reunited with my wife. And you have Charles being I hope that is the case too. So George sacrifices himself while Charles goes in to confront Jacob. And so, because I said all that, but it's truth be told is we don't know how many, whether all of them got either, or whether they scattered to the winds. I think the way they're implying it makes it seem like everyone there at Jerusalem, all the vampires got it. Not a single one of them escaped. Maybe they did, maybe, who knows. But Charles going toe to toe with Jacob to end this. It's like, I even love the line of him being like, we could coexist. We can find a way to end this. Just give me the book. I'm surprised Charles came at it with that perspective. I felt like, it was like, are you lying or are you being truthful about that? But he's like, no, we've always coexisted, but we've always had to hide ourselves in the shadows, and that's not how we're going to exist anymore. Now it's your time to be in the shadows and feed. It's time for us to kind of be out and about and do what we want. But he sends Loa in, and it's like, don't listen to this guy. He's a deceiver. He's a liar. And he's like, he doesn't care about you. And Loa's like, and you do, Father? And she protects him. She kills the woman that she turned last episode, which I'm kind of glad. I'm like, yeah, after everything you've done, like, because she's the main one amongst the humans. Once again, doesn't even have a name. She was the main one amongst the humans that was shitty. That, once again, she killed Faith. She was like the main one, so I'm glad that, she finally got hers after everything. But I mean, to be fair, Loa was having her doubts even last episode, regretting what she did. I mean, everything she did last, in episode 8 was for the sake of protecting her family. So it's like, and then it eventually became just like, we didn't really know where she stood with her father, but we knew where she stood with her siblings. But at the end of it all, Charles got his against Jacob. And I did like that, like, it was George's parting gift to him that, like, gave him the edge. And Jen is just like, oh, like, you want an internal darkness? You'll get it. Swing! I thought the way that the axe, I was like, oh, it's going to take multiple hits. And then his body slid. It was like, oh, no. Because, like, he stabbed him in the neck with the cross and then, like, stabbed his head against that, like, spike or whatever out of the wall and then beheaded him. It's like, that's pretty hardcore for, I mean, it's not the first beheading. Well, she saw the beheading first, like, in person this time. Last time she just saw Philip's head get tossed. But your boy Steven sneaking in like a little rat to get the book, and Charles chases after him. And it's like, despite everything, he's like, we could be a family again. Like, we're the only family each other has. Like, my daughter's gone, my father's gone, but like, at least, cousin, we still have each other. It's like, your father was too weak and like turned away from the book, but it's like, no, this time, because for him, it's like, the worm is coming. Let's prepare ourselves, because once a worm comes, it's like, I'll finally get whatever wish I want. It will bless me. It's like, what you want. I mean, he wants power. He wants position. That's all it has been about. That's what they're obsessed with. And so I guess he thought he could have that all. Like, it'll kind of fill the void of all that he's lost, in this run for power. But, yeah, Charles bashes his head in with the rock and then stabs him. And he's like, yep, you're done. So it's like, oh. Rebecca comes over, closes the book. I was like, wait. I looked at the timer. I was like, we're about 18 minutes. Wait, it's done? I was like, I was expecting this to be most of the episode. I'm like, most of the squad is dead. Not surprised. But man, Rebecca and Charles, you're okay. Obviously, Abel and the doctor are alive. Sadly, George didn't make it. And there's the whole Loa thing. I was like, so, because also it's not like, oh, killing Jacob turned everybody back to humans. It's like, no. Once again, like, I think that's typical. I always confuse that because I think that's mainly that's a werewolf thing and not the vampire. I feel like there have been instances where I know that's been a vampire thing, but it must mainly be a werewolf thing that I'm thinking of. But regardless, Loa's reluctant because she can't come out into the light, but he's still embracing her, being like, no, like, you can, like, let's go home. But for her, it's like, being what I am. But regardless, he brings her home. Obviously, he made sure not to stop by Preacher's Corner first because he knew, like, right, they saw her. Like, I mean, there was already issue. Like, if they find out that he let one of them survive and it's his daughter, like, she already has a lot of hate for being a boon. And now on top of, like, not being white and also now you're a creature. It's like, no, like, Charles knew not to do that. He wanted her to be his secret. Only those in the inner circle know the truth. And obviously, Honor and Tane are happy to see him again, but now seeing Loa, because they had talked beforehand, and she's like, they'll never accept me. He's like, it may take them some time, but they will. But obviously they don't, because, like, especially for Honor, it's like, she betrayed us, like, and even Loa kind of apologizes, because she's like, right, the only reason why I became what I became, because I wanted to hurt you, and it's like, it's because of me, like, everything kind of played out this way, but she tried to make up for it by making sure her family was safe, and when the time came, she protected her father. But now there's a conversation about what they do, because, I started beginning to think, I was like, the moment that was introduced, like, now that Loa's here and everything, I was like, what are they going to do? Especially because they're like, the book has to stay in her hands because it has to be in the hands of the dead or the curse will activate again. At first I was like, do you think he's going to, I was like, is he going to turn himself into a vampire so that Loa doesn't have to be alone? I was wondering if that was it. They'll go off together. Borderlining right. My thought process at first was right, but it's like, no, it ended up being, no, he wants Loa to stay here with the rest of her family. And he's leaving the kids in Rebecca's care because that book needs to be with the dead. But he also knows, like, Jacob's not the only one. There are problems, not just like anyone from Jerusalem's lives, like anyone. There could be others out there like him after the book, and they will come for it. So it means putting his family in danger, and there's a good chance that if that book gets into the wrong hands, it's not just, Charles not even worried about himself anymore. He's trying to give his children the best chance possible because this book has ruined so many childhoods. It screwed up Robert and Philip. The same thing. It turned, it led to Marcella's tragedy, with Philip and Stephen, and then, it repeated itself with his father almost killing him, and what that left him, and now like the cycle continues to repeat, and it's like, no, I've got to break this cycle for my children's sake. So for Rebecca, it's like, what's next for us? And he explains like what he has planned, and it's like, it's him saying goodbye. For Rebecca, it's like episode 8, it's like, no, let's focus on what's next. Like, let's not think about like, where we'll go next. It's like, right. She's like, this should be the beginning of our story, not the end. And he's like, well, maybe someday you'll be able to write a better one. And it's like, the kids have grown to love you. Cause she was like, yeah, I'll stay by the kids' side. I'll protect them whether they want me or not. It's like, no, they've grown to love you just as I have. And it's just like, in this moment when they finally, have this moment together, it's so short-lived because what the future could have been is taken away. Because for Charles, it's like, I've got to give my children the best chance. And Loa, when finding out, because Abel was sent to get the doctor, he's like, come with your instruments. I was like, what is he going to do? I was like, the means of getting Loa to turn you, obviously you don't need all that. So I was like, what is your plan? And so even Loa was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'll take care of the book. But for him, it's like, no, this is something too dangerous. Because it's not your responsibility. Because she's like, I'm sorry. He's like, no, I'm sorry too. He's like, I failed to protect you. Like, because once again, it's like, she only did this to hurt him. She didn't realize that everything would cascade like this. She didn't know things would lead to this. But it's just like, she just wanted to hurt her dad like she was feeling. It's just like, he wasn't there for her like he should have been. And he didn't protect her like he should have. And it's like, yeah, the fault and responsibility is mine alone, because like, I have to carry this burden so my children don't. Like, so that you nor like your sister, it's like, think of your sister and brother, like they deserve the best chance. So it has to be me that does this for them. So he drinks Loa's blood, and then she has him drink, because I think a combination of, one, this way she stays fed, and two, like, it's a very peaceful way to go, because any other way would be thrashing and stuff like that. I never would have seen it coming that, like, oh, Charles needs to become a vampire in the end. I didn't think about that. And so the doctor comes in and cuts him open. Like, the moment he's got the book and everything, I was like, you're gonna stitch it inside of him. Even Rebecca having to come see him dead like that. And the moment, like, Loa was done, and they were like, Loa, she was just walking, because it's like, I'm the reason why it came to this point. Like, my dad's sacrificing himself for all of us so that we could all be okay. He's making this sacrifice for us. Because even before all this, like, Charles was thinking about what his wife had said. She's like, I know, like, your childhood and everything. I know what that's kind of done to you. I know you'll find a way. And for him, I guess it's like, his father was just another victim of all of this, and it's like, he won't let his children be a victim of this, because this will end their lives one way or another, whether it's driving them to madness, which will lead to their deaths, or it might be a situation where, much like he was planning at one point in his season to kill him and the kids when his madness got the best of him, or even when Silence tried to kill herself. Well, she successfully killed herself, but she was trying to kill Robert and Philip back then. So it's up to him to break the cycle once and for all. And obviously, Honor still has her reservations about trusting Loa. Even Tane being like, she did help save us. It's like, yeah, but it's because of her. Like, how can we ever, you know, and Rebecca's like, at the end of the day, and she repeats what her father said. It's like, one of them had told me they can feel or as much or as little. And it's like, your sister's feeling it all. And so it may take some time, but maybe someday you can find yourself to forgive her because everything she is doing is for, you know, you and your brothers. So. And obviously Charles awakes, and you know, and I love like Abel being like, "It was an honor serving you." He's like, "No, the honor is mine," you know. And even the doctor saying like this secret, he's like, "Here's his death certificate. It's like heart failure, but your father's secret will die with me." You know, it's like no one in Preacher's Corner will ever know the truth. I mean, the only other characters we really got to know in Preacher's Corner, all of them are dead. Martin, Alice's dad. The big dude, like the more notable characters we got to know are all dead. So outside of that, like aside from this core cast that's left, like there ain't no other character. You know, it's like I'm still feeling bad that Martin didn't get to survive this. I'm just kind of sad things that man, it's just tragedies all around. I'm still tripping about that. I was watching the preview and it's like, yeah, they didn't touch on that in the preview because it's like, right, that story ended there, and you know, like, right, we got to focus on like the main points of what's going forward into this finale. But Charles saying his goodbyes, you know, telling his son that no matter what deterrents, the good and bad of like don't let anything deter, like he chooses a path and don't let it deter you from it. And he was like, I won't disappoint you. And obviously telling Honor to look after Loa and as well as Tane, but it's like, you know, look after them. And Rebecca, you know, is going to be there. She's like, as little or as much as you guys want, but Honor's like, you are a part of you are just as much as our family, so of course we're going to want you to stay. And so having to say his goodbyes, this choice that he made, going out to see, and I love that moment with Tane. You know, Tane's like, I'll see you again, and he was like, I'll be looking for him. I'm like, oh, dude. Honestly, I was starting to well up a little bit. I was like, man, this is a sad ass ending. It's beautiful in its own right because it's just like all that he's ever wanted to do is take care of his children, and there's been bumps and mistakes along the way, but this is his way to make up for those mistakes. I think this is his way to ensure to his deceased wife, who's watching over them, I'm sure, that like, no, like our children are okay. I'm leaving them in the best hands. And as he's sailing away, you know, Loa yells out, Father, I love you. I think knowing that he has all of his children's love, and yeah, they're sad, but knowing what he's fighting for, a reminder of what he's fighting for, leaving them is the hardest thing he will ever have to do. And hearing that probably makes it a little, whether it makes it easier or harder is hard to say, because I'm sure hearing that, just wanting to be back with your kids, it's hard. Because Loa could come with him, but he doesn't want to put her in that danger, considering everything that will be coming his way after looking for that book. So, but I love the thought of like, yeah, eventually, like obviously they will age and grow older while their father won't, but it's like Loa like will be able to live on forever. I'm sure going forward, I'm sure she's going to stay at Chapelwaite, but there was still that beautifulness of like that ending bit by Rebecca about, you know, this story being what it is, you know, like the having to, you know, leave behind, like, you know, leaving the side of the only men that she's ever loved, you know. And at the end, you know, Honor walking beside Loa and grabbing her hand, it was like, right, despite everything, like, you are my sister, we are a family, we have to look after each other. He's like, no matter, don't let any words or disagreements, like, even if your distance separates you, always find your way back to each other. So, a very beautiful yet sad, I think a great way to end this all. It's just, it's sad that they survived this all as a family, and you know, so Loa's there to probably like, because no other like vampires will ever come there because they'll have no reason to go to chapel. Well, because we know like the whole point was to also make it seem like Charles was buried there. So to keep that secret, like everyone's going to think Charles is actually buried there. And if anyone ever comes looking for the book with Charles' body or something, like that family will be there to protect it, because this is their opportunity. It's like they do have the business. They'll probably continue their father's business, and now Chapelwaite is a place. Because I think Tane was thinking about, he wanted to go to like back home, but it's like, no, this is where we need to be. Like we have a business here. We can start something here like father wanted. This could be our second shot, you know. And yeah, we have to do it without dad, but we're not alone. We have each other. So I thought there was this really nice beautifulness to it, like considering all the death and bloodshed that, it's nice for things to end this way. So at least Preacher's Corner's free of that. Plus, those siblings are forever free of the curse, and their children, if they ever have any, future boons, will be free of that curse. Because of the sacrifice that Charles is making. So it's not just this generation, it's not just his children, but his children's children, and so on and so forth. So at the time of me recording this, it hasn't been confirmed whether or not there is going to be a second season or not. I was talking about it before, like that's why I say finale, season finale, because I'm not sure, because this is based on a short story, so probably anything going forward if they did continue it, because I don't know, I have to, because I'm planning on looking more into this afterwards, of like the differences between this and Jerusalem's Lot, the short story in particular that it's based on. So with the nature of this story, this definitely feels like this could be the end. Like they don't have to do a season 2, but you could do a season 2. You could follow Charles' life as he's protecting the books, or maybe like time skip as like his children go looking for him type of situation. Like probably get like maybe an older actor, like it could be a few years, it could be like a few months or a few years, or it could be like an exponential amount of years. So like it could be like 20-30 years down the road, have an older obviously the same actor who played Loa obviously could play Loa, but then like an older Honor and Tane potentially. But I think the story being what it is, like your thoughts about like what that looks like, him protecting the book and stuff like that. Obviously it's sealed within his own chest. Like, so if any vampires do come looking, they'd have to go through him. Because he's kept his wits about him. Also like finding a way to exist in this world in the shadows of, like, are you just going to like, how does he handle that going forward? Because we saw what Jacob surrounded himself with. So it's like, how will you find more people who are like the Promise, who want to become like Jacob? Will Charles have to deal with stuff like that? Those are questions that you could deal with the aftermath of that in season 2. But I think it could, like, it's one of those things like Watchmen where it's like you could easily do a season 2, but I'm also content with you ending it the way it is, because it's a beautiful open and shut case. Like I said, because I feel like this is probably, once again, they probably took their own liberties because that's what most adaptations do, but I feel like it's just, once again, the short story itself is that a short story, so like it feels like it can end with just one season. But the fact is that there's no clear cut, like, I guess Epix is still weighing their options on whether or not they want a second season or not. I'd be so curious to see what they would do. Not unless like they made it like an, kind of like what was kind of talks about Watchmen, something like other people talked about, what I talked about, and what Misha Green had talked about what a season 2 would have looked like. But it's like, no, I'm not Watchmen. I was thinking of Lovecraft Country. Sorry. But what I thought for season 2 of Watchmen, you could almost make an anthology, a new set of characters in that universe. Same thing for like Lovecraft Country could still fit in that same vein as well. But the question then becomes like, would they do that? Like, will they make they could make a whole another story like set in this universe, kind of dealing with that? Maybe like it is like, maybe we're not following these exact characters, but you tie it in with Charles' story. Have I been saying Stephen the whole time? I hope I have been saying Charles and not Stephen. Once again, my mouth runs faster than my brain sometimes. Regardless, but I'm also, like I said, I'm content. I love to know what people want. Like, would people want a season 2? Would people be like, no, like, I like the ending as is? Like I said, it's a bittersweet ending, but I think it is a great bittersweet ending. Not everything has to have that happily ever after, but I think there's a beautifulness to like this sacrifice for family. At the core of this has been about family so far. To end this way is very befitting. Considering like, what Stephen and Philip are up to, because their selfishness is what let a lot of stuff play into this. Because Charles broke that cycle in many different regards of just like, right, because everyone's trying to save their families in their own regards, and he found a way without having to kill his children and perpetuate this continuing curse. Like, he found a way to break it, to spare his children in a different way than his predecessors, whether it be his own father, whether it be his grandmother, so on and so forth, so I'm really interested to see what they decide to do, because like I said, if this was like an open shut, like, oh, there's only going to be one season, I figured we'd already be in that case. It's still in that place where people are like, it's likely, it's very unlikely, but meaning it's still a possibility because there's enough open room for it. So we'll see what ultimately happens. I'd be interested either way. If this is the only season we get, I'll say what I usually say with finale type of situations. I wish the cast and crew and everyone associated with this very intriguing story that I didn't expect it to take the turn that it took. I just knew it was going to be a horror story. Maybe Charles, that Charles is crazy, so on and so forth. Didn't expect it to turn into a vampire story. So that really blew my mind. Once again, just some shows have been full of surprises where it's like, oh, this is a vampire story? Okay, cool. Once again, if we don't get a second season, I wish everyone that's connected to this project the best in all their future endeavors. So, like I said, all being said, in case we don't get a second season, if we do, then you still never know what the cast situation would look or the story would look like. But like I said, we'll ultimately wait and see. But until then, till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.